In early March 2026, a sudden escalation in the Middle East captured global attention. A major oil facility in Iran was struck by airstrikes, triggering massive explosions and fires visible for miles. Within hours, Iran launched a large-scale retaliation. Firing hundreds of missiles toward Tel Aviv, air raid sirens echoed across the city as missile defense systems rushed to intercept the incoming threats. Now, rising tensions between United States, Israel, and Iran are raising fears of a wider regional war. What exactly happened? And how far could this conflict escalate? In early March 2026, tensions in the Middle East escalated dramatically following a series of military exchanges involving United States, Israel, and Iran. The developments have drawn global attention, raising concerns about the possibility of a broader regional conflict. For years, relations between Israel and Iran had been marked by indirect confrontations, cyber operations, and proxy conflicts across the region. However, the events unfolding in early March signaled a significant shift, with direct military actions reported by multiple sources. The escalation reportedly began on a Saturday night when a major oil storage facility in northern Iran became the target of an airstrike. The facility, known as the Siren Oil Depot, is considered one of the country's strategic energy infrastructures responsible for storing and distributing large quantities of fuel. Shortly after the attack, large explosions were reported in the area. Massive fires erupted across sections of the facility, sending thick black smoke into the night sky. Emergency crews were quickly deployed to contain the flames while authorities attempted to secure the surrounding area. Not long after the incident, officials from Israel acknowledged responsibility for the strike. According to statements released by Israeli military officials, the operation targeted infrastructure believed to be connected to Iranian military capabilities. The Iranian government strongly condemned the attack, calling it a violation of national sovereignty, and warning that a response would follow. Within hours, Iran launched a large-scale retaliatory operation. The attack was reportedly carried out by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a powerful branch of Iran's military responsible for protecting the country's strategic interests and conducting many of its external military operations. Iran named the operation True Promise for Iran. During this operation, hundreds of ballistic missiles and combat drones were reportedly launched toward Israeli territory. Several major population centers were placed on high alert, including the metropolitan area of Tel Aviv. Air raid sirens were activated across large parts of Israel as the country's missile defense systems began intercepting incoming projectiles. Israel's multi-layered defense network, designed to detect and intercept missile threats, was deployed to counter the attack. Despite the defensive measures, reports suggested that some missiles managed to penetrate the defense systems and struck several locations on the ground. Emergency services responded quickly to reports of explosions and structural damage in affected areas. As the situation intensified, the United States also became directly involved in military operations linked to the crisis. The U.S. military command responsible for the Middle East United States Central Command, known as CENTCOM, confirmed that American forces had conducted a series of strikes against targets associated with Iranian military infrastructure. According to U.S. officials, operations focused on strategic facilities believed to support Iran's military capabilities. These included weapons storage locations, logistical hubs, and other installations considered critical to Iran's defense operations. Naval activity was also reported in the Persian Gulf, where several confrontations involving military vessels allegedly took place. Some reports indicated that multiple ships were damaged or sunk during these incidents, although details remain contested by different sources. The rapid escalation of hostilities resulted in significant humanitarian consequences. Casualty figures reported by various outlets suggested that hundreds and possibly more than 1,000 people were killed during several days of intense military exchanges. One of the areas reportedly most affected was the Iranian capital, Tehran. Multiple districts experienced explosions and damage following reported strikes in and around the city. Hospitals across the region were said to be overwhelmed with injured civilians as emergency responders worked to rescue victims trapped under debris. Thousands of residents were also forced to evacuate their homes in search of safer areas as the security situation deteriorated. In Israel, several communities experienced damage caused by incoming missiles. Though many projectiles were intercepted, a number reportedly reached the ground, causing fires, damaged buildings, and injured civilians. Emergency teams and local authorities were deployed across affected regions to assist residents and restore critical infrastructure. Beyond the immediate battlefield, the crisis also triggered intense political reactions around the world. The administration of Donald Trump issued strong statements regarding Iran's actions, calling for Tehran to halt its military operations and accept strict conditions aimed at restoring regional stability. At the same time, disagreements began to emerge among Western allies over how to respond to the crisis. One of the most notable responses came from the government of Spain. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez publicly stated that Spain would not allow its military bases to be used for operations targeting Iran. Sánchez described the conflict as a serious strategic mistake that could lead to a wider war if not managed carefully. His comments highlighted the growing divisions within the international community regarding the appropriate response to the escalating tensions. Meanwhile, several countries began calling for urgent diplomatic efforts to prevent further escalation. Among those offering mediation support was Indonesia, which announced its willingness to assist in facilitating dialogue between the parties involved. Diplomatic channels were reportedly being explored by multiple governments and international organizations seeking to prevent the conflict from expanding beyond its current scope. Amid the ongoing crisis, Iran also attempted to manage the regional diplomatic fallout. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian issued an apology regarding an incident in which one of the missile strikes reportedly affected an area near Doha. Iranian officials stated that the strike had not been intended to target neighboring countries and expressed regret for any unintended consequences. Observers viewed the apology as an attempt to reassure neighboring Gulf states and prevent additional countries from becoming directly involved in the conflict. As the situation continues to unfold, analysts warn that the risk of a wider regional war remains significant. The Middle East has long been one of the world's most strategically sensitive regions, and conflicts involving major military powers can have far-reaching consequences. Beyond the immediate security concerns, the crisis also carries potential implications for the global economy. The Middle East remains one of the world's primary sources of energy exports, and any disruption to oil production or shipping routes could impact global markets. Energy prices often react quickly to instability in the region, making developments in the conflict closely monitored by governments and financial markets worldwide. Military analysts also note that prolonged hostilities between Iran, Israel, and U.S. forces could reshape the strategic balance of power across the Middle East. At the same time, international diplomatic efforts are continuing behind the scenes. Several governments and global organizations are urging restraint and encouraging all parties to return to negotiations before the conflict escalates further. For now, the situation remains highly volatile. Military operations, political negotiations, and diplomatic pressure are unfolding simultaneously, creating an uncertain and rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape. The coming days and weeks will likely determine whether this crisis moves toward de-escalation through diplomacy, or develops into a larger and more prolonged conflict involving additional regional actors. The world is watching closely as events continue to unfold across the Middle East.